Oh, am I lagging? Oh, never mind. Sorry. I can always just call someone in and you can discuss it if you need. But let's just start off with some basic stuff. So you mentioned it was your rookie year. What are some like challenges and successes that you like met this year?
For outreach
Um,
specifically, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
want to
yeah.
make sure. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for like outreach specifically, we've been trying to like get in contact with a lot of schools and like after school programs. And I think a challenge that we faced is like a lot of people just don't reply. And like we're trying our best to like either call or like find other ways to contact them. But I think that's just like something that happens like no matter what you do.
Yeah, it definitely is. For the interview series, we sent out a lot, and like sometimes we got responses, sometimes we didn't. But like as long as you reach out to enough people, I'm sure someone will reply. Like this is a perfect technical outreach, like the interview. Um, how has your like team managed this year, like time wise? Like, because I know like the qualifiers are like soon coming up. Like, how has that been?
Yeah, so it's kind of like different because like we have three departments. We have like our building department, we have our coding department, and we have our department. So it's very like I guess everyone is on like a different stage, right? So for building, they're still on the building part, but they should be done very soon. So they kind of like build went very fast with it. They model design on CAD very fast and they like talked and had meetings. So they're like, I guess, halfway through building the robot. So I don't know how like we're doing compared to other teams, but Build is doing pretty good. Our coding team is also I guess in pair with the building team, so they're also doing pretty good. The Irish team is kind of like a little bit behind because it's I guess, as Darina mentioned, a lot of like people and organizations don't really reply back. So it kind of like offsets things because if they did reply back like as soon as possible, it would be like very easy to, I guess, organize things and like events and outreach ideas. But since like some organizations don't respond at all, it's very hard to like if one doesn't respond, you're like, oh, he didn't respond. Like maybe this organization will, but they don't respond. So it's kind of like one, two.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you guys were like halfway, like you're pretty good with the robot and mechanics. Do you want to talk a bit more about it? Like, how are you scoring? Like, what are you planning on doing? Are you thinking of hanging, like, autonomous? Is there anything you want to mention?
Yeah, so we're basically like trying to build, I guess, like a hand, almost like a claw, to pick up these blocks and kind of put them on those containers. And we're also gonna try to use that same hand to, I guess, like um what's it called hang on the bar, which is gonna be quite challenging because our bot is quite heavy at the same time. So we're gonna try to minimize the weight but our strategy, we haven't really like expanded our strategy too much because still on the building part, but um, we're trying to build a design with like an arm that should be able to go through the center and get those blocks and put them on the containers. But we haven't really thought too much about the strategy yet because we're focused on building for now. But yeah. What about you guys?
Yeah, most definitely. We also went with the claw design and just like for strategy, it's not set in stone. We haven't exactly started driving practice yet, but we're planning on just aiming for the high bar and we're not exactly thinking of hanging any specimens because it takes
Mm.
about double the time to hang the specimen and it only offers 2 extra points per sample. So we were thinking that maybe we would just ignore it for now. And and that's our robot. Is there anything that you think is special about your robot that you think you're doing differently from other teams? Like, are you using any special 3D prints? Are you cutting anything? Like,
So far, I think we will be using like we're using 3D printing a lot to like kind of like build the armor for the robot as well to make sure that does not that stands and is very strong. But I would say like it's very like I guess similar with a lot of teams. But one of the things that might be a little bit unique about our robot is that we're trying to like I guess have like an extendable. So the arm is like it's not really like a full-on extended arm already, but it extends farther. So a lot of teams already do that as well because the high bar it's very high. But yeah, so I guess a lot of like teams will have very similar designs because it's quite, I guess, the game is very repetitive. So,
Yeah, there are a lot of high things in like every year, so I guess it is like going to be repetitive. So
yeah.
we talked a lot about the robot. Do you know anything about like the coding, maybe like the autonomous during teleop end game? Do you guys have any plans for then?
I'm not really sure about
We
the
haven't
coding
really,
aspect.
yeah, because one of our like coding leads, who knows like pretty much everything about coding, wouldn't be able to make it today, so he would know everything, right? So, but I'm not like 100% sure about what coding is doing right now because like everyone's moving at different paces. But I think they're still working on the autonomous mode for now. And they're, I guess, moving on, but I'm not sure at which exact stage they are on right now. Yeah.
All right. Well, you mentioned earlier that you guys catted the robot on like, is there any like special like things that you did? Are you using like Onshape, SolidWorks, like Tinkercad? Is there like any like lessons you learned while you were doing it? Like, talk a bit
I
more
believe
about
that we used Inventor to model it.
that. Is this like the
Yeah,
first?
and
Sorry, no, you go on.
okay. Yeah, and I think one of the designs that our sister team made was they 3D printed a little like slide on top of the robot. So I don't know if you remember, but last year they had to like go through the thing. I forgot what it was called, but the slider really helped to like push it through. So it was very smooth when the robot passed through the columns. So we might, I guess, not do the exact same thing because the game is very different, but we might do something that like I guess helps the robot glide smoother. But we're still working on the 3D printing part for that. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. Like the lots of last year game components, like they were difficult. There were a lot of them last year. This year's is more simple, but some of them can also definitely carry over to this game. Um, so you guys are like in the outreach section, right? So what are some initiatives you guys have conducted this year?
What we're trying to do right now is we're trying to like focus on like expanding STEM to like younger students. So we were reaching out to like middle schools and elementary schools, specifically like their after school programs, and we're trying to like instate like STEM workshops and like STEM classes after school for the kids. And actually, like last week, one of the schools I emailed, like my old middle school, responded, and they said that they would be interested because I was on their Lego robotics team when I was there, so I think that might be like a good starting point for us to like start the STEM workshop.
Yeah, that's schools are definitely like a great way to do outreach. We have a few lined up for ourselves. So part of technical outreach is also like reaching out to mentors and like coaches. So do you guys have any that you guys want to discuss, or like is there like some techniques you use to like contact mentors?
Mhm. So we basically have on Staten Island there's this college called CSI. So they're pretty much like a community college full of like professors that, especially engineering professors that I guess are very good at this field. So what we've been trying to do for our technical outreach is contact them and trying to email them to possibly like mentor us. But it's been quite hard at the same time because I guess they're very busy and some don't reply. So, it's very hard to like organize it, but we've been trying to get in touch with our local community college, so
Also,
trying to do.
to add on to that, like one of the like I emailed a bunch of clubs from the school trying to see if we can probably if like it's possible for our team to come to some of the club meetings to like meet the students in the college as well as like the professors. And I like emailed like a lot of different STEM clubs, and one of them replied a couple of days ago saying that they have an upcoming meeting where they're gonna have some other teachers from other schools as well, so we're trying to coordinate that. So that's like one of our first responses for the CSI.
Yeah, that's definitely really cool. Having teachers help you is a really big help. So like looking at like this year's game, like Into the Deep, it's like it's a simpler game than last year for definitely, but it's still a complicated game on its own. What do you think would be one of the biggest challenges this year? Like whether it's like mechanic, coding, strategy, like what do you think would be the biggest challenge?
I think just figuring out a way to be able to do like to get the most points, so strategy, and also like mechanically and coding, like to be able to get onto the high rung. I just find that like to be one of the most difficult like challenges and like into the deep.
Yeah, and like how would you say you would like you're distributing your team's like members or like your team's like workload amongst the members? Like I know you mentioned before you guys had like different sections. Would you say like one section has more members, one has less, or
I
like
think we're
equally divided?
pretty I think we're pretty evenly divided. So we have outreach, build, and code. Build and code kind of like I'm on outreach and build, but I think I do kind of more outreach, but also build. And there's a pretty even amount of people on all of like the three different sections. But mostly we work together. Like outreach, of course, does a little bit less for the build and coding, but build and code work together a lot after school, as well as like we have like spreadsheets about like what tasks have to get done, so that everyone makes sure like so we can make sure that everyone's doing the right things.
You don't always have to ask for money for sponsors. Sometimes it's just good to like have sponsors because it shows that you're like out reaching out to the community and like you're like connecting with like local companies. So sometimes like it might like sometimes like even they just give you like maybe like a free coding lesson or like some free tickets to like the local arcade. Like all of these stuff like you should still accept them. Like it doesn't hurt to like have an extra sponsor on the team. So
Mhm.
yeah.
I also have a question. Before you were asking us about how we like divide up our work, do you guys also have like separate like sub parts in your team, or do you all just work together on everything?
Sometimes we're like a bit of a smaller team. I think we have only 10 members currently, but the currently we because it's at the beginning of the season, like not sorry, not begin it's not beginning anymore, but like at the beginning of the season, like all of us were on mechanics because like we didn't really have a robot to code, so like everyone just worked on mechanics. But now that our robot is like semi like it's like basically completed, we're just working on some of like the small parts. Like a few of them are breaking off into like the coding sector, so like they can work on the code. So once we're done the robot, they can like combine. But there are definitely sections like, but everyone's supposed to do everything. Supposed to.
Mhm.
Well, like, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the best at coding. I'm usually doing outreach and I do help with mechanics sometimes, but I'm mostly outreach. And so there are definitely sections that are like implied, but we're supposed to do everything technically.
It's cool. And one more thing, like, do you guys, for example, the season, the game is called like Into the Deep, right? So I kind of thought of it as like Into the Deep is more like because everyone thought like oh it was gonna be like water based and because that wasn't really possible because that would be dangerous for the robots. But I thought of it as like a hint towards like an outreach idea because they usually give hints towards what they want you to do. So like for example, Into the Deep like as it says, maybe they want like us to focus on the oceans and more like the environment. So have you guys like done anything for the environment or anything for like the oceans and other stuff?
We're planning some things like I know a few friends that like do surfing or like rowing, so I was thinking maybe reaching out to them. But right now, like that's just water related. But right now, we haven't really been able to do much. We've reached out to some like water conservation companies or like, but none of them, of course, they haven't replied because they're like bigger companies. But we're definitely still brainstorming. The season's still technically young, so we were like, of course, if we come up with anything, like it'd definitely be great. But do you guys have any ideas so far?
So far we haven't like just as you guys, we haven't really like started on the environment too much because like the season is still like as you said young, so we haven't really like too done too much action on it, but we've started to brainstorm it. And one of the things that I came up with was like Staten Island was like one of the biggest, like that's where our team is. It was like one of the biggest landfills in like all of the United States, but at the same time like it's very hard to clean up landfills, so that was like a very big problem. But yeah, we're still on like the brainstorming stage for the environment. And of course, we have their outreach idea, which Dorina said, which was like helping younger kids that don't have access to STEM knowledge. So that's what we've been like trying to incorporate.
Yeah.
Yeah, for environment, we were also thinking about before like doing beach cleanups, but we haven't like acted on it yet. We're just like brainstorming before.
Yeah, beach cleanups is definitely a good idea. I'm in Toronto. We don't exactly have that many beaches, so that's not really a possibility for us, but it would definitely be like a really good idea if you guys had some around you. But So it's not, but do you guys have any more questions or no?
Um, I had like a kind of like a build question, like how, like, what do you think, like, you asked me this question too, but like, what do you think is like unique about your robot? Like, what do you think you guys did that's special to you guys only?
We're using the same hang design as last year, so we haven't really tried it yet with our complete robot, but we're hanging through string. Last year it was a bit more of a challenge because we only had one motor available, but this year we have two, so it's definitely gonna be like a stronger pull. So we're trying to hang with magnets and strings where our intake has two magnetic hooks on the side of it, and it's like after we reach up and we like detach it by pulling it down, but the hook stays up there. So we're gonna try to pull it up through string. I think that's definitely um a bit more unique, but I did notice that some other teams did do that last year, so it might not be that unique. But we also do have like custom side plates because we have a CNC machine available to us. We're very lucky to have that. So I think like creating custom parts is definitely one of the other things that we are proud of and is I think would be unique. But um yeah, I definitely see the string one is definitely the most unique though, like string
Yeah,
hang.
yeah, that sounds really cool.
Hmm. Yeah, because like we've like the way we were thinking of hanging, like for our sister team last year used like didn't really use strings or magnets. They kind of like used the same arm that took the pixels and they used the same arm to hang. So a lot of teams did that as well. But the string and the magnet thing looks, it sounds very cool.
Yeah, last year that wasn't
That's a
really
really
feasible for us because we used a roller intake, but definitely using the claw is a really smart idea because you don't have to add any extra parts onto the robot, which like not only makes it a lot lighter, but is also like really good for like optimizing your materials. So I think it's a really good idea. How do you make sure that like everyone is always like has like something to do? Because like one issue that our team has a lot is that we get like we're jobless sometimes, and like that like we're like at the shop, we're available to do something, but like everyone has taken all the jobs already, so you just kind of stand there. It's kind of awkward. Like, how do you make sure that everyone is like doing something and like not feeling left out?
Well, what we have is I know for build, like last week we had a meeting online on Discord and we just made like a Google sheet where we assigned like every person or like people in pairs or even three people for bigger tasks, like small things that they have to get done. It was like a deadline. And it wasn't like the next day. It was like you have a week to like get this done. And then that way it's also like flexible so you can like match up your schedules with someone else. And this way like everyone knows what they should be doing roughly. And also like in text messages we'll just send out like can this person like send out these emails by next week or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I'll pitch it to our team. Yeah. I'm noticing we're getting really close to the 40-minute mark, so I'm just gonna and I don't want the interview because like we're already basically there's only 7 minutes left, and I think we're pretty much out of questions unless anyone
Yeah.
else has any.
No, I don't have any more.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we're out.
thank you so much for coming to this interview.